Today is Sunday. I hope you have some free time and your mind is free from everyday problems and worries. So today I'll touch on a few topics. First, under what conditions is it possible, if at all, to steal other people's presidents? Also, the landing of the European Union troops in Greenland and Trump's response to the threat from NATO allies. The first moves have been made on the planetary chessboard. That's how I would put it. And how will the battle that has begun between the new and old worlds affect Ukraine, Russia, Israel, and Iran? And finally, the last act is the return of Ishak Pahlavi to a country crippled by Islamists, together with employees of the Federal Security Service of Russia. So they took off. Are KGB officials or just KGB agents from Tehran landing? They usually work as officials in embassies and various representative offices. Or they will manage to organize a mass shooting of demonstrators using weapons they brought from Belarus. And they will drown the uprising in blood. Already more than 2,000 dead bodies are lying in the streets and squares of Iran. Closer to the end, I'll show you how Trump sees the dome to protect the United States from China and Russia. By the way, yes. So you might be interested to know that the Ayatollahs are demanding money, and not a small amount, from the relatives of the killed. For what? For the return of the bodies, the corpses of killed and tortured Iranians. British Broadcasting Corporation has just reported this.
Families of protesters killed in Iran told the British Broadcasting Corporation that authorities are demanding large sums for the body's return.
So we tortured your husband here, or your son there, tortured him, he died. If you want to get his body back, then pay up, or we'll throw him into a ditch with a bunch of others, or just into a garbage pit. But let's get back to the main topic of our report. Is it allowed or not allowed to violate the borders of a sovereign state? If it's allowed, then how, by whom, and when? Is it now possible to kidnap presidents? In the last 2 weeks, I've given at least 10 interviews to Ukrainians, Russians, Italians, Canadians, and even to our own people, during which I was asked the same question. But what's interesting is not that it's the same question, but that it's always phrased the same way, which can be summed up like this. So, is it allowed now? Can you invade sovereign states and do whatever you want there? Does this mean that laws no longer work, and now Russia, China, or anyone else can just fly anywhere and kidnap presidents or whoever they want? I understand where the question comes from, of course, that's clear, but at the same time, I'm amazed both by its form and its content. Hold on, let me explain. Let me try to answer this question, which, in my opinion, has a lot of inaccuracies and inconsistencies. Let's start with the wording of the question. Now it implies that there was a time when it was not allowed to invade another country for any reason that might come to a neighbor's mind. That is, as if it was forbidden by someone, as if for 6,000 years in a row. Well, that's fate. Judging by the records in the book that, is revered by 3 great world religions, humanity did nothing but invade other people's territories. And what did it do there? It looted, killed, destroyed, and seized. I'm not saying that's good, I hope you understand. Yeah, I'm just saying that was normal, usual human life, a common practice. Okay, if you don't want 6,000 years, fine, let's make it shorter. Our modern, more or less recent history begins with a moral revolution started by one man. His name was Moses, Moshe, and so on, who left. It was about 2 weeks, but I might be wrong. And he came back from Mount Sinai with a stone tablet on which were carved 10 important messages from someone who led the Jews out of slavery. One of the first things written there was, "Thou shalt not kill." That same day, upon discovering that during his absence the Jews had started praying to another deity, and the Jews didn't call them gods, but rather those who live above. So sometimes they were simply called the Upper Elohim, or Elohim. One upper L is a single upper one, but Elohim means many upper ones. As stated in the Torah, the first or second verse mentions Elohim, referring to the upper ones, meaning more than one, at least two. So having figured out what it means, they give, well, meat, milk, food, and even girls to another upper one. Moisey ordered the chief of security, Livy, I think in Russian it's Livy, yes, to gather the oprichniks, or whatever they're called, well, the guards there, and to go through the camp, taking out sharp swords from one end to the other, killing everyone they meet along the way. They lined up, went, and started killing. Reportedly, about 3,000 people were killed in several places. I don't think this resembles the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Yes, but after that, no one offered meat or girls to any other higher up anymore. Well, maybe only in secret, only secretly, right? In the Livius family. For that, they were awarded the rank of priest warriors, if we put it in Russian, and they held a special position in the temple. From that moment on, and the acceptance, so to speak, of the Ten Commandments, this is when they accepted them, they said everything, that they would no longer obey anyone else. They would obey only this one of yours at the top, who is so jealous if you pray to someone else or ask for something. He immediately gets nervous. So it's been about 3,500 years, give or take, since that moment. So they accepted the Ten Commandments, and humanity managed to be at war for 93% of those 3,500 years. 93% of the time. So again, to say that now, well, after Trump is a bit naive. Maybe the conversation is about the post-war period, after World War II. Since 1945, there have been 252 wars worldwide, not just skirmishes or shootouts, but actual wars as defined by the encyclopedia. So once again, it's about entering another country and so on. You could say we're being a bit naive here. Yes, now that we've discussed the laws, let's move on to the United Nations laws. Like, so to speak, did Trump break the law? The United Nations, which failed to prevent those 252 wars, issued laws that no one follows or observes about non-interference in the internal affairs of sovereign countries. So, well, as always, they included an exception in those laws. What is that exception? If they're the United Nations' toughest, strongest guys, how many? 5? Okay, let's say 5 more. Join in, but you'll get punched in the face if you vote differently. These are 5 strong, muscular countries. If they decide it's okay to seize, invade, rob, or kill, then it's allowed, and "thou shalt not kill" loses its meaning. Because there are 5 tough guys there, as they're called the wise men, as we call them, yes, meaning the Security Council. They call themselves that, yes, a group of big countries. They said, yes, go and wipe them out like rats, because we're tired of them, we've had enough. So it's easy to do that, right? And the second exception is a huge loophole in the law. This loophole is called self-defense. So let's recall the question again about whether it's allowed to invade. Yes, you can, if the Security Council says it's allowed, and if the place you're invading did something bad to you. From your point of view, the response to a bad action is called self-defense. The United Nations suggests they call it proportional. Well, of course, that's the dumbest thing, and it won't stop the next intervention, so the dumbest thing is proportional, answers Akinea. Everyone knows these documents, but here they constantly lie and pretend with the United Nations documents. The Helsinki Accords and other treaties allow the use of force on the territory of another state if hostile actions are coming from there and it's impossible to defend yourself by other means. Impossible by other means, so there are exceptions. So let's think about the following. From across the border, let's say, they're shooting at you. Whether it's cannons, rockets, it doesn't matter. They're throwing stones with slingshots from the territory of a state. Here's the border, here's the state, and you don't have the right to cross it. He says, I can't do anything. The police, well, the Security Council, yes, says, yes, I can't, I won't, I don't have time to deal with this. And they're shooting at you. your children, your friends, your parents, and killing them, just shooting. If they miss, fine, but sometimes they don't miss at you. According to the United Nations decision, you can take the initiative into your own hands. According to the United Nations decision, you take a team of daring guys, your own or strangers. It doesn't matter. You kill everyone who tries to stop you, because you're going to do a good deed to protect everyone, and those who try to stop you, who try to prevent you. You hide those who shot at you, then you find those who shot, you kill all of them too, and at the same time you blow up the local chief's house so that next time he stops aggression against you. All of this is completely legal. I just told a story in Israel. Now, another thing is that from the territory of that country, they come into your country. Well, let's say raids by bandits on horses, on tanks, on whatever, even on boats, just like those Vikings on boats. Besides that, there's a new thing. They bring drugs, kill people, I don't know, rape, rob, take something away. You catch them, you caught one, executed him, put him in jail. And others keep coming in and coming in, coming in and coming in. Just like the Vikings, who were simply impossible to get rid of. They can't create things, but they're skilled at taking them. They specialize in waiting for others to act, then taking what was done. The neighboring government's getting a share of the loot, which means, in other words, they're doing nothing. On this matter, the Security Council says, please don't fan the flames. And this goes on for a year, 2, 3, 10, 15, 25, and it happens daily or monthly or yearly. You, your friends, your country are being robbed, and every year it's more and more. Well, the younger ones, because they robbed, nothing happened to them. They came, robbed, even killed, robbed someone, nothing happened. And the main one there, well, the prince there, for example, on that side is also a bandit, and he even laughs about it. When you come to him and say, listen, old man, well, please stop this, he just laughs, ha ha ha, what can you do? I would send my guys, or maybe some hired ones, take out the guards of that bastard who's laughing and bring him to us. I'd tie him to a post, strip him down, and keep him there until he dies. I'd also let the kids throw stones at him and keep a television camera on him, turned on 100% of the time, the whole time he's dying. And as soon as he went to his buddy, the one he prayed to, I'd kidnap the next one in power and tie him to the same post again. And so on for everyone in that very kingdom and state. Whoever doesn't get it that they shouldn't, well, they just shouldn't come running to us. Here we steal them, bring them to this square, tie them up, strip them, tie them to this post, and pile up stones for the kids to play with. He just waits there until he dies. I haven't decided if I'll feed him. Of course, I'm adding some embellishments, but I told the story of Maduro, who was warned 100 times that things wouldn't go well, not very well, but he just kept shaking his fist in the air like a fool. Moreover, because of the drugs they're bringing into us, and this guy, this loser, I don't even know, there are others too. Well, that means people are dying here because of them. What can I say? Quite a lot of people are dying. Yes, from that particular kingdom, that state. Only 10% of the supply, or 150,000, die each year, so 15,000 die due to people like Maduro. And we could, according to the United Nations principle, kill as many in Venezuela. As they say, we have 15,000, they have 15,000, but we didn't do that. The United Nations demands, suggests, and persuades us. We killed only 100 Venezuelan guards and, well, about 2 or 3 dozen Cuban guards who were just in our way, preventing us from meeting our beloved person, Maduro. And so he wouldn't get bored, we took his wife too, to punish him. We wanted him to sit in the same cell with his own wife 24 hours a day, can you imagine, with his own? He'll kill her. He'll definitely kill her. Another claim was that now Russia and China, anyone at all, will be able to, and so on. That is, before that, Russia hadn't invaded Crimea, Georgia, Moldova, or bombed Grozny, and China hadn't killed tens of thousands of Muslims. Uyghurs, I think. They also hadn't occupied Tibet, where they killed half the population while claiming innocence. But now, after Donald Trump did that, now all of them will get out of control. And Iran didn't support Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and Venezuela didn't support Cuba, and China didn't support North Korea. So, before Donald Trump, they were all angels, and now it's just terrible. Trump simply corrupted them. They suddenly realized that it turns out to be Zia, while before they thought it wasn't Zia. And finally, on this topic, we've at least partially solved the Venezuela problem. Well, maybe not completely yet. We didn't bomb cities or kill hundreds of thousands like Russia did in Ukraine, and we didn't commit genocide like China in Georgia or Ukraine. We didn't poison, we didn't organize terrorist organizations, we didn't carry out any terrorist bus bombings, and we didn't shoot children in schools and kindergartens. Remember who does that? Yes, we kidnapped a specific person, the one who gave the orders, and no one except his guards was harmed. And this is what breaking the laws and rules means. This is what the laws are about. So they created an era of gentlemanly relations, and we broke them. We broke the chivalrous relations between countries. Well, gentlemen, you could say the era of crime is beginning all over the world because of Trump. What should we do? I have a suggestion. Send this video to your friends and to those who disagree with you. Let them listen and write their opinion. A blow to Europe. I want to make a statement. Many people won't like it, but you can respond to me in the comments. So, Europe will have to answer for its words. Let me say it one more time. Europe will have to answer for its words. Gentlemen, I like what we're doing, gentlemen Europeans. I mean, we've been protecting you for over 70 years. We're spending money and sacrificing the lives of our guys. Our guys, you should actually be thanking us every day. Maybe not 5 times a day, but at least once a day for sure. If you try to bite the hand that feeds you, we'll send you to a few well-known letters of the alphabet. We say that to defend our country, we need to reach the Greenland line. We believe this is necessary. Let me remind you that we're not only protecting you, but ourselves as well. We don't have an obligation to protect you. We also want to protect ourselves a bit, and we need that. So we need this. Instead of saying, "Dear, respected, well, unloved, fine, you don't love us." Dear. Thank you, Americans. Thank you for what you have done for us, starting with helping us defeat fascism and then helping us defeat Bolshevism. And all the years when you spent your money on defense, while Europe, we spent the freed-up money on social programs for our native population, we paid you, the United States of America, nothing for protecting us. Now, in my opinion, Europe should say, and this is just my opinion, that we want to do everything possible to help you, Instead, there's this ungrateful Franco-British-German pig herd. They open their mouths and say that we are fascists just because we offered to buy from Europe an island that Europe doesn't use, doesn't protect, and which our enemies have started to frequent. Don't you think, gentlemen Europeans, that you don't understand who is doing whom a favor and who is supporting whom? And then suddenly, 8 European countries sent a contingent of defenders to Greenland to protect it from the United States of America. NATO members sent a NATO member to protect another member from the United States of America, well, from the head of NATO, from the leader, from the one who pays for NATO, from the only one who really exists. Well, excuse me, there's also Turkey in NATO. So even if it's symbolic, even if it's a laughable number of military personnel. I don't know what to call them, but instead of saying thank you, they showed us the middle finger on their left foot and told the world that they would defend Greenland from us to the last drop of Greenlandic blood. It kind of reminds me of Ukraine. Yeah. Okay, if you want to pick a fight, if you want to play with symbolism, fine. Here's a symbolic club to your real pocket.
We begin with breaking news. Tonight, Donald Trump says that world peace is at risk because of Greenland. He claims that China and Russia want this territory and Denmark can't do anything about it, accusing them of having only 2 dog sleds for defense. He also stated that the United Kingdom, as well as other European countries, including France and Germany, have gone to Greenland with unknown intentions, accusing them of being a threat. Therefore, it is vital that the most decisive measures are taken to ensure universal peace and international security so that this potentially extremely dangerous situation is quickly and finally resolved without any further questions. Starting from February 1, 2026, all the above-mentioned countries, namely Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be subject to a 10% tariff on absolutely all goods sent to the United States of America.
On top of the tariff that your car manufacturers, your winemakers, your machine tool builders, and your fashion designers are currently paying, send another 10% to the Treasury, and you will immediately become uncompetitive. Do you believe cars in South Korea and Japan are inferior to yours? Do you think wine from Australia, Spain, and especially our domestic wine is worse? No, that's why we can drink red, not from the Loire Valley, but from South Africa or the Napa Valley, which is near San Francisco. But, gentlemen, just so you don't have any doubts, we really don't like it when someone who owes us. This is how Europe behaves, like an ungrateful whore. Well, whore not in the Hebrew sense, shliukanik, as a messenger, but in the purely Russian sense, where this word means prostitute. But I want to say once again, we are not LE and we are not LE. This is very serious, and that's why the rates will go up. When, by how much? 25% will stay and will remain there until we all come to an agreement about Greenland, and you get the hell out of there. Well, how many personnel are there? There are 35 military heroes there. One from the United Kingdom, one from Finland, and from other very powerful countries too, who altogether can't stand up to the poor and lousy Russian organized crime group. 4 years, no progress.
On June 1, 2026, the tariff will be raised to 25%. This tariff will remain in effect until a full and final agreement on the purchase of Greenland is reached.
Seizure. I think we want to buy that piece of land. We bought Florida from Spain, we bought Louisiana from France, we bought Alaska from Russia, and now we're offering to buy Greenland. If it's from Denmark, that's fine. And everyone who used us as a shield, who milked us not only in the military aspect, but also through not very honest trade, not letting our goods into their markets. I mean, all of you just try for once in history to be decent, if you can, of course, which is hard to believe. Here is their reaction.
Honestly, I would say this is a real disaster for Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour government, who have invested so much in developing these supposedly close special relations with Donald Trump. They are also conflicted between maintaining these relations, defending NATO, and supporting a close European ally like Denmark. And what we've seen in recent weeks since Donald Trump started talking about Greenland again and how he wanted to take it over, either through some kind of invasion or by purchasing it. Sir Keir Starmer has spoken with him several times on the phone and talked to him about recognizing the importance of strengthening security in the high Arctic. Then he reached out to European allies, had phone conversations with President Macron of France and Chancellor Merz of Germany, in which he told them that it is very important for all of us to work together and increase security in the high Arctic. Recently, we saw a trip to Scandinavia to reinforce this message, followed by Britain oddly announcing the deployment of only one. A military officer went to Greenland to take part in reconnaissance exercises as part of a major international NATO training mission, which has not yet been officially presented and was announced this week. It seems that this is what Donald Trump might be referring to when he sort of lists all these countries planning to visit Greenland, but says it's for unknown purposes. They're playing a dangerous game. It's surprising the United States didn't know what the Europeans were doing there, considering that the whole point of this was to try to show Donald Trump that he doesn't need to take Greenland in order to ensure its security, that the Europeans and other NATO members are ready to contribute to strengthen and help protect Greenland. But the message here is very aggressive towards the United Kingdom and essentially to all the other European partners mentioned in his statement. And the economic impact of tariffs, of course, is something that no government would want, especially a government that has made economic growth its top priority. Well, right now, the United Kingdom already has a 10% tariff on most goods imported into the United States as part of the first round. Donald Trump's tariffs, which at one point were much higher and then were somewhat reduced. So it's not entirely clear to us what exactly this will mean. He says the 10% tariff will rise to 25% starting in June and won't be able to fully control Greenland.
I take this to mean Europe is panicking. They decided that sending soldiers to Greenland is a nice idea, a symbolic gesture. It will sound great in their countries. They will be able to shout from the podium about how they defied America, how they are resisting Trump. But, gentlemen, with Trump, you have to answer for your words. You have to take responsibility for what you say. By the way, I'm already furious. By the way, they sold out Israel, betrayed the refuseniks, they betrayed the Soviet Union and America. I want you to note one interesting fact. There are 57,000 people living in Greenland, and according to the census, 85–90% of them are the local population. The Inuit, who look like this, and 10–15% are Danes. And now take a look at the protest against America, which offered to give $100,000 to each resident of Greenland. Do you see even one Inuit in this photo? They comprise 90% of the population. I'm not even sure if they were told on the island that if they agreed to change the flag, each person would be paid 100,000 United States dollars, and a family of 10 would get $1 million United States dollars. And here is a poster written in English, held by the defenders of Greenland, who are demanding that Trump not take the island away from them. The poster says, "Trump, you need a psychiatrist, not Greenland." So they, the Danes, the British, the French, the Finns, need Greenland, but Trump needs a psychiatrist for wanting that very Greenland, where they secretly carried out a program for many years to eradicate the local population. In fact, the last time they performed surgery on a girl so she couldn't have children, claiming it was a mistake from 100 years ago, was in 2018. I already talked about this. So Trump says that the Organization for the Defense of North America, which he calls the Golden Dome, needs Greenland. Let's see what that means.
President Trump has firmly confirmed the United States' intention to take control of Greenland, stating that the world's largest island is vital for the new American defense system, the Golden Dome, and that everything else is unacceptable. So, what role will Greenland actually play in the Golden Dome, and how will this modern defense system work? Here's everything you need to know. Trump clarified his previous comments about the importance of the autonomous Danish territory for defense on Wednesday, January 14, in a morning post on TRUTH Social. The United States needs Greenland for national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome that we are building. NATO should pave the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China definitely will, and that's something we absolutely cannot allow. NATO becomes much more formidable and effective if Greenland is in the hands of the United States. Trump announced the Golden Dome in May 2025. The project is inspired by the Israeli Iron Dome, which the United States ally has used for nearly 15 years and showcased during its 12-day war with Iran. Last year, Trump estimated that the new incarnation of the United States would require a staggering $175 billion to operate fully for 3 years after construction is completely finished.
The Golden Dome will be able to intercept missiles even if they are launched from the other side of the world and even if they are launched from space, including hypersonic, ballistic, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be shot down from the air.
According to aerospace engineer Ian Boyd from The Conversation, Trump's vision for the Golden Dome is timely and extremely necessary, as the United States faces new threats that require an updated defensive approach. United States adversaries such as China and Russia have been developing maneuverable hypersonic missiles in recent years, posing a threat to the current missile defense systems of the United States. Boyd says it's crucial for the system to detect new missile threats as soon as possible after launch. This requires a global network of geographically distributed sensors, including ground, sea, air, and space-based sensors that cover all phases of all missile trajectories as they travel hundreds or thousands of miles. He says that ideally, the Iron Dome would rely on interceptors deployed in locations that protect vital United States assets from technologically advanced missiles. Strategically positioned interceptors will be able to intercept threats along the trajectory between the missile launch and its final descent. Greenland would be an ideal spot for these interceptors. The island's low population allows ample room for sensors and interceptors, and its central North Atlantic and Arctic location gives it a strategic advantage for early missile detection.
But is the Golden Dome the only thing we're interested in? Greenland has large reserves of rare earth metals, uranium, iron ore, as well as germanium and gallium, which are needed for chips, electronics, and the defense industry. That's right. These resources can seriously reduce our dependence on China for the supply of rare earths and metals. For high technologies, Greenland could become a base for the production of microchips and accelerators, high-frequency magnets, and defense technologies. We don't want to build all of this abroad. If Greenland is considered abroad, we want to build it on United States territory. Because of its low temperatures, Greenland could become a location for energy-intensive data centers and, I would suggest, centers for electricity production using, let's say, nuclear technologies. By the way, besides a formal purchase, there are also discussions about free association agreements between the United States of America and Greenland. The profitability of most projects is low, but this is a long-term investment in supply stability and in freeing ourselves from dependence on potential adversaries such as China. Of course, people from the United States will go to Greenland for work, and possibly from Canadian provinces that want to leave Canada. Well, like Alberta, for example. For example, engineering services, cybersecurity, software, and telecom services, when transitioning from the European Union to the United States, will of course be provided by American companies. Control over Greenland's infrastructure will let the United States influence goods transit between Europe and Asia. Naturally, there are economic risks too. Up to 80% of the territory is covered with ice, infrastructure is almost non-existent, the working season is quite short, and logistics are expensive, which actually significantly increases the initial investments and subsequent costs. There is a risk to get stuck in unfinished projects that require constant subsidies. In Greenland, there is strong resistance to uranium mining, and that's if a country in the European Union can stop the projects. In other words, it's an investment in a future that may never come. A future we're counting on, It's a commercial and political risk. And if, let's say, a replacement for rare earths appears, it will turn the extremely expensive Arctic projects into unprofitable ones, and yet it's still worth it. At the very least, to get Russia and China away from our shores, practically from right under our noses, that's all. All right, then, have a good rest of your Sunday. Enjoy yourself. Tomorrow is a new week, and I'm sure it will be absolutely wonderful. Sometimes I read comments and listened to speeches of socialists, fascists, and other anti-Trumpists, and I think, where could I find a smart one among them? I mean, to discuss, to listen to their logic, their evidence base. But of course, I need someone who isn't just off the street, not just someone who simply wants to have a chat, but someone who already has a channel, who is listened to by quite a lot of people, who has followers, who has already, so to speak, explained and demonstrated their point of view more than once, so that it would be possible to argue with that point of view. Well, I mean, someone who has proven that they know how to explain things and tries to explain them. From my point of view, that's unproven, but anything is possible. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, have a great rest of your weekend and see you next time.